The karma. The karma paradox. There is a strange happening in modern culture. People will watch something bad happen to someone they dislike and immediately call it karma. Someone gets embarrassed, karma. Someone gets publicly dragged, karma. Someone loses their job, their relationship, their reputation, their peace, their health, or sometimes even their life. And a crowd of people will gather around a digital campfire and say, well, that is what they get. And what makes it strange is not that people believe actions have consequences. Actions do have consequences. What makes it strange is how selective people become with compassion, because the same person who celebrates pain when it lands on the porch of someone they dislike will suddenly become a philosopher, a therapist, a lawyer, a pastor, a historian, and a crisis counselor when pain lands at their own address. When it is someone else, they want punishment. When it is someone they love, they want context. When it is someone else, they say that's karma. When it is their child, their parent, their friend, their favorite celebrity, politician, content creator, someone from their tribe, suddenly they want the whole story. Suddenly they want nuance. Suddenly they want grace. Suddenly they want everyone to stop clocks. Word to Leona Lewis, because now the suffering has become personal. And that is the karma paradox. A lot of people do not believe in karma. They believe in revenge with better branding. They do not want justice. They want their dislike to feel spiritual. They want their resentment to have a halo. They want to look at someone else's pain and feel like the universe just gave them a standing ovation. But pain is not always proof that someone deserved it. Sometimes pain is just pain. Sometimes loss is just loss. Sometimes embarrassment is just embarrassment. Sometimes tragedy is not a lesson plan from heaven. Sometimes it is just another reminder that human beings are fragile. Life is unpredictable, and none of us are in control as our egos pretend to be. And before anyone misunderstands me, this is not a message of saying people should escape accountability. No, accountability matters, consequences matter, boundaries matter, justice matters. If someone harms people, lies, manipulates, abuses power, steals, betrays, exploits, repeatedly violates others, consequences are not cruelty. Consequences are part of repair. But there is a difference between wanting accountability and celebrating destruction. There is a difference between saying that person needs to face consequences and saying, I enjoy watching that person suffer. One is justice, the other is entertainment dressed up as morality. And a lot of people are not as moral as they think they are. They're just emotionally invested in the downfall of whoever they have decided is the villain this week. That is where tribal living becomes dangerous, because many people are not even angry because someone personally harmed them. They're angry because someone has different views, a different lifestyle, a different background, a different way of speaking, a different political position, a different spiritual belief, a different social group, a different rhythm of life, a different way of existing in the world. And instead of saying that person is different from me, they say that person is bad. And once they call someone bad, they give themselves permission to treat that person like they are no longer human. This is how people become cruel while believing they are righteous. This is how bullying becomes activism. This is how harassment becomes accountability. This is how public humiliation becomes entertainment. This is how people can say be kind in one post, then participate in the digital stoning in the next. And let me say this carefully, a crowd does not automatically mean wisdom. A million people agreeing can still be a million people avoiding self-reflection. A comment section can look like a courtroom, but that does not mean justice is being served. Sometimes it is just a mob with Wi-Fi, and mobs are dangerous because they let people outsource their conscience. When everyone else is laughing, people laugh. When everyone is attacking, people attack. When everyone else is calling cruelty karma, people join in because no one wants to be the one standing in the room saying, hold on, are we sure this is who we want to become? That is the hard part about awareness. Awareness often makes you the person who pauses when everyone else performs. And in a world addicted to performance, the pause looks suspicious. But that pause is where your humanity lives, because you cannot be spiritually awake and emotionally bloodthirsty at the same time. You cannot be deeply conscious and casually cruel. You cannot claim moral high ground while using another person's pain as a lawn chair. At some point, we have to ask ourselves, do I want this person to be accountable, or do I want this person to hurt because I do not like them? That question will humble you if you answer it honestly, because the ego loves to disguise vengeance as virtue. The ego will say, I want justice, when what it really means is, I want to see them humiliated. The ego will say they had it coming, when what it really means is, their suffering makes me feel powerful. The ego will say that is karma, and when what it really means is, I am glad I did not have to do it myself. And that is where the danger begins, because once you start celebrating harm, you start training your nervous system to confuse cruelty with closure. And cruelty is not closure. Cruelty is usually pain looking for somewhere to sit. A lot of people are carrying old wounds, old embarrassments, old betrayals, old family patterns, shame, abandonment, rejection, powerlessness. And they're waiting for the world to hand them a villain. So when someone online becomes the approved target of the day, they pour years of private pain into a public stranger. They're not just reacting to that person, they're reacting to a parent who never apologized, a friend who betrayed them, a teacher who embarrassed them, a boss who belittled them, a partner who cheated, a family system that trained them to swallow pain and smile through it. So when the internet gives them someone to hate, they finally feel like they have permission to release everything they never processed. But unprocessed pain does not become wisdom because it found a target. It becomes projection. And projection is one of the biggest engines behind the karma paradox. People are not always responding to reality. They're responding to the emotional movie playing behind their eyes. That is why some people cannot debate without degrading. They cannot disagree without dehumanizing. They cannot be challenged without feeling attacked. They cannot hear a different perspective without treating it like an invasion. And then they call that morality. They call it standing on business, being real, protecting their peace. But sometimes protecting your peace is just a cute phrase people use when they do not want to examine the chaos that they themselves bring into every room. Now, let us talk about the people who use religion as a belt buckle, because some people do not wear faith as a path toward humility. They wear it like an emotionally unregulated parent from the 90s reaching for something to hit somebody with. They will quote scripture when they want obedience. They will quote mercy when they need forgiveness. They will quote judgment when they dislike you. They will quote grace when they themselves are exposed. They use morality like a remote control. Whatever channel benefits them in the moment, that is where they land. And the bar moves depending on who is being measured. When it is someone they dislike, they demand purity. When it is someone they enjoy, suddenly they understand complexity. They can separate the art from the artist when the music is good. They can separate the movie from the behavior when the actor is talented. They can separate the content from the character when the creator entertains them. They can separate the lifestyle from the belief systems when the person makes them laugh. But let it be someone outside of their tribe. Now they have standards taller than a cathedral ceiling. That is not morality. That is selective outrage. That is not discernment. That is convenience wearing church shoes. And if you ever have tried to win approval from people like this, you already know the game is rigged. The goalpost is sewn to them at the hip. You cannot win with someone whose standards move every time their ego feels uncomfortable. You cannot win with someone who changes the rules based on who they like. You cannot win with someone who thinks accountability is something that only happens to other people. You cannot win with someone who hears facts as disrespect. You cannot win with someone who confuses your boundaries with betrayal. You cannot win with someone who only respects your silence when your silence benefits them. And this is reason 1,000,001 why self-worth, self-acceptance, and self-discovery are not just cute little personal development phrases. They are survival tools. Because when you do not know your worth, you will keep entertaining courtrooms where the judge hates you, the jury knows each other, and the evidence was never going to matter. You will keep explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You will keep auditioning for people who already cast you as the villain. Word to Thanos. You will keep shrinking yourself to fit inside rooms that were designed to drain you. And eventually you will realize something. Some people do not want clarity. They want control. Some people do not want truth. They want leverage. Some people do not want peace. They want your nervous system on a leash. And if you do not have self-worth, you will mistake their approval for oxygen. That is where self-abandonment begins. It usually does not start loudly, it starts small. You ignore your own discomfort to keep the peace. You say yes when your body already said no. You give money you do not have. You give time you needed for rest. You offer emotional support when you are emotionally bankrupt. You help people who would not even inconvenience themselves to help you. You become the strong one, the dependable one, the forgiving one, the understanding, mature, the one who gets over it, the one who does not need much, the one who always figures it out. And society loves a giver. Oh, baby, do they? Family loves a giver. Friends love a giver. Workplaces, communities, until the giver needs something. Then suddenly everyone is confused. Suddenly people are going through a lot. Suddenly they're busy. Suddenly people don't have it right now. Suddenly repayment is shipping from overseas. And that is when resentment enters the chat. Now I want to be clear, resentment is not always evil. Resentment is a feeling. Feelings are just feelings. What you do with the feelings is what makes it moral or immoral. That's up to you. And that depends on what your moral code is. And do you stand on your moral code, or are you like many where the moral code is one-sided, like a mirror, where you don't, it's not a window, where a window is two-sided, a mirror is one-sided. And so other people have to follow it, but you don't. Anyways, and that is when resentment enters the chat. Now, I want to be clear. Sometimes resentment is the soul's fraud department. Sometimes resentment is the part of you that finally says these charges are not authorized. Sometimes resentment is not proof that you're bitter. Sometimes it is proof that your boundaries have been robbed for years and your spirit finally found the receipts. A lot of overgivers feel guilty when resentment shows up because they love the people they are resentful towards. That is what makes it confusing. You think, how can I love these people and feel this angry? How can I care about them and also not want to hear one more request? How can I be generous and also feel completely exhausted by giving? Because it's not just, I can't speak for all episodes of resentment, but based on my experience with resentment in my personal lived situation, it was the fact that the people were often emotional listeners. So you could not correct them without it turning into an argument, without it turning into them taking whatever they heard in their alternate reality of hearing you say. So it would be easier just to go along with it. But then the more you went along with it, the more drained you became. And you were hoping that the last time was the last time, that maybe they really are going to be on the up and up. And maybe this is the last time when they say, oh, can I borrow? This is my last time, I promise. Like, not to mention they're unreliable people, because of course, if they're financially struggling, I would never ask them for money. A lot of the situations I told the people, don't worry about it, because it's like, if I'm trying to help you, if you got to pay me back and you clearly are bad with money, I will hope that that extra money that you don't have to pay me back will be the extra boost you need to make it to the finish line without having to rob Peter to pay Paul. But apparently, no. It's just when you develop a given relationship with people, they develop learned helplessness, which means that instead of them finding solutions in their brain where the solution would go, you are there, which means that they're never going to excel from that situation unless it's a truly one-time assistance situation, maybe. But when it comes to repeat encounters with people, baby, you are the help. You are 211 to them. How can I be generous and also feel completely exhausted by giving? That confusion usually means you were trained to believe love requires self-erasure. You were taught that being good meant being endlessly available. You were taught that being kind meant being easy to access. You were taught that loyalty meant bleeding quietly. You were taught that if you had anything left, someone else was entitled to it. And the fact that we build familiar connections based off of familial influence, wherever your upbringing took place, you were in that environment with those kinds of people. Like, maybe you are someone who developed unique connections that were toxic with no connection to childhood. It happens. But a lot of the cases that make it to the textbooks are of people duplicating family dynamics. And the differences will be what fools you, because maybe if you hang with people from a different financial culture or a different religion, You thinking you're gonna get different results because maybe your family is of this religion or of this culture or these morals. But no, subconscious is a messy bitch that loves drama. That's why you got to get to know it, or get to know the unconscious parts of yourself at least. And that is a childhood Trojan horse. It looks like love. It sounds like duty. It may even get praised as maturity, but inside it is a survival pattern hiding in adult clothing. Maybe you become the helper because help was how you earned safety. Maybe you became the giver because giving made you feel valuable. Maybe you became the peacekeeper because conflict in your environment felt dangerous. Maybe you became the dependable one because unpredictability trained you to overfunction. Maybe you became the fixer because nobody came to fix anything for you. And then adulthood arrived. Now your rocket fuel is being poured into someone else's open bar. Your time, your money, your energy, your attention, your ideas, your emotional labor, your empathy, your patience, your loyalty, all flowing outward. And one day you look up and realize everyone has a cup, but no one bought water for the well. The lack of reciprocity does not always show up in the exact same form. You may help someone financially and they may not be able to help you financially, fine. But do they show up emotionally? Do they check on you? Do they respect your time? Do they protect your name when you're not in the room? Do they honor your boundaries? Do they show gratitude? Do they remember what you sacrificed? Do they offer what they do have? Because reciprocity is not always equal exchange, but it should at least be visible or attempted. When there is no reciprocity in any form, the village well starts drying up. And the scary part is that overgivers often do not stop when they're tired. They stop when something breaks, too many long work days, a sudden loss, a financial emergency, a health scare, a betrayal, one disrespect too many, one ignored boundary too many, one can you help me too many. And suddenly the person who used to be patient has had enough. The person who used to explain goes silent. The person who used to give starts saying no. The person who used to tolerate starts blocking access. The person who used to be available becomes unreachable, and people are shocked. What I love about the people in my personal instance is that before before my retirement from being the king of self-abandonment for the sake of others, word to altruism, those people were so unbearable. My idea that I loved them was the only thing that was keeping me around a lot of them. But baby, once I realized that love should have brought you home last night, baby, whoo, I was too happy to say no because I already knew it was coming. I already knew Armageddon was coming. But for me, I'm free. But for them, they thinking all of this controversy, I guess based off of my previous software versions, was going to lead to me immediately putting on my Inspector Gadget trench coat and trying to immediately soothe the issue and mend the fences and heal the burned bridge and do all of these other different things. I need some water. 1 second. The lack of reciprocity just made my throat like if I just swallowed cinnamon or something. Nevertheless, once it was over, whoo, it felt like the first bottle of water after a hot day, or if your feet been burning and you finally get to sit down, or if you get in a hot tub or a hot shower after sweating all day. That's what it felt like. And it confused them because the previous software versions was always trying to fix stuff. And people who tend to not grow, if you are like consistent with a personality around them for so long, they think that that's who you're going to be forever. So plot twist. And not to mention, for me, I don't care what people, like when I care about people, I care what they think. But if we done, I don't care what you think, especially those types of people who drain people because they're usually gossipy too. And that's one of their bargaining tools, is trying to demonize everybody else around them. So before you can ask them, where your family, where your wife, where your husband, where this person at, they make it seem like these people are bad and all of this other stuff. So baby, if you that like backstabby, I don't care what you have to say when it's over, because you was probably already talking about me when we was cool. So who cares? Like, it's over. Don't be a bitter Betty all your life. They're shocked that the version of you that they benefited from is no longer on payroll. And that is when you begin showing up for yourself first, not because you hate people, not because you're a cold, not because you're selfish, but because you finally understand that self-sacrifice is not proof of love when no one else was ever asked to sacrifice for you. Let that sit. You never require anyone to abandon themselves for you. You never require anyone to empty their life for you. You never require anyone to carry you at the cost of their own stability. And most of them never even tried. So why do you think it was natural for you to do it? That is discovery. That is the moment the spell starts breaking. And after the spell breaks, there's often a phase I call rerun bitterness, which was the previous slide before that one. There we go. Rerun bitterness is when your mind starts replaying everything: the money you gave, the time you lost, the loyalty you wasted, the stress you absorbed, the moments you stayed quiet, the disrespect you swallowed, the opportunities you missed, the years you spent being useful to people who never asked you if you were okay. It can get dark, especially if you already have other stressors in your life. But when your mind starts replaying the footage, it can feel like you are back there, back in that argument, in that household, in that friendship, in that relationship, in that job, in that version of yourself that did not know how to leave. But this is where you have to step out of the emotional driver's seat. This is where you enter drone mode, zoom out, look at the map, look at the terrain, look at the full pattern, and remind yourself this is a replay, not a live stream. You are still trapped. You're not still trapped there. You are watching old footage with new eyes. You made it. You're free. You have a clean slate now. Yes, you may need to sand down the cuts on the board. Yes, you may have to Windex the smears on the mirror. Yes, you may have to learn who you are without survival mode making every decision. But that is not punishment. That is renovation. That is emotional restoration. That is what you walking into the house of your own life and finally saying, who left it like this? And then instead of burning the house down, you start cleaning. You start noticing what you actually like. Not what your family told you to like. Not what your friend group made popular. Not what the internet convinced you was valuable. Not what your trauma taught you to chase. Not what loneliness made you tolerate. Not what social media made look normal. You start asking real questions. What do I want? What do I need? What kind of people make me feel safe? What kind of environments help me grow? What do I enjoy when no one is watching? What does peace feel like when it is not being interrupted every 5 minutes? What does love feel like when it does not require me to audition, perform, or disappear? That is self-discovery. And let me tell you something about the internet, mainly social media, but the internet is not a compass. The internet is a storm of yelling voices, and the voices on the big screen shift all of the time. Building your identity around the internet is like basing your whole life on today's weather. Today it is sunny. Tomorrow it is flooding. Next week, everyone is mad about something else. The trend changes, the villain changes, the hero changes, the moral panic changes, the language changes, the acceptable opinions change. The person everyone loved yesterday gets dragged tomorrow, and the person everyone dragged last week gets a documentary 10 years later explaining how the crowd got it wrong. So why would you build your self-worth on something that unstable? Why would you hand your identity to a comment section? Why would you let strangers with cartoon avatars, burner accounts, bot behavior, and unresolved childhood wounds become the board of directors over your life? Some of the accounts may not even be real people. Some are bots. Some are paid engagement. Some are actors portraying a lifestyle. Some are people performing confidence from a bedroom they have not cleaned in 3 weeks. Some are emotionally unwell using the internet like a punching bag. Some are lonely, bored, addicted to outrage. Some are just repeating whatever made them feel included. And too many people are taking every gigabyte of online noise to heart. Not to mention, baby, people are getting paid for views. People are getting paid for views. The same way that as much as we love car salesmen, sometimes it comes between they paycheck and you. If you just happen to be at the wrong car dealership at the wrong time, baby, and you will sell, recall or not, some people need their bonuses. So, I mean, honestly, when it comes to anything that has people attention involved, expecting ethical behavior from people who get paid for engagement is a lot. It's not like this is something like the medical field where they have safeguards and licenses and different things to prevent people from doing stuff, even though they still get away with doing it for some reason. And so you have to wonder, like, if people are always able to tell you the problems, but they never have the solutions, all you're going to have is a brain full of problems. If every day is a new problem and it's every day of the week, that's 365 days of problems that you're dealing with and no solutions for any of them. And all that does is make people feel hopeless. And when people who grew up in homogeneous environments, that's why it's so easy to be divided online. When you do not feel safe, the mammalian part of your brain that develops creativity, critical thinking, and everything else is not able to be fully activated. Because as long as you feel unsafe with anything, your neighborhood, your finances, your love life, whatever, it's going to have you in an emotional state. So when it comes to all of these different things, as an adult in America, the benefits of the things that you could benefit from knowing would be at basic. If you are a driver, at basic, the driving laws, turn signals, stop signs, yield, all of those different things, parking laws. If you lease your vehicle or financial vehicle, interest rates, prepayments, how much interest you're going to pay over time. When it comes to apartments, tenants' rights, that you have a lot of rights when you are a tenant, and a lot of those leases have it listed in there. And it's things that you can hold the landlord responsible for. It's certain agreements and promises to maintenance. That's stuff people need to know. When it comes to politics, instead of the Democrat Republic thing, people need to really know what politics are. Who is your area representative? Like, who? I'm in Louisiana, so we have different names than the rest of the country, so I don't even want to confuse people. But like, who's your senator? Who's your House of Representative? Like, who do you call about the streets in your neighborhood to report out? How about to say headlight, out red light, like just different stuff like that. Because a lot of these issues that people get online crying about and just attributing to a different group, braces and a dry mouth don't mix, by the way. But a lot of the things could be solved. Like, not to mention, when it comes to local government, start paying attention to where money is going. Start making suggestions. If people got along better and had stronger voices within cities, they could get the small stuff fixed. If New Orleans had actual active voters in large numbers, people who petitioning for streets to stay clean, for the city to have the people cleaning the drains out, making sure the pumps are on instead of just a few voices on the next door app. Like, you have to make it count where it needs to count. And being angry does not get anything resolved with anyone, customer service, politics, or anything. Even with shopping places don't get better until people move as one. But you have to realize the common interest and stop focusing on what makes you different. It's a lot more things that make people similar than different, especially when it comes to mindset, because a lot of the emotional people, they're just like emotional people from other parts of the world, just like emotional people from other ethnic backgrounds. That's the funniest thing, that like they're more similar to each other than the people that's their same background. And too many people are taking every gigabyte of online noise to heart. They are forming real attachments to digital people, digital products, digital arguments, digital tribes, and digital approval systems that were never designed to love them back. That is why we have to become more careful. Baby, some people is gone already. Gone already. That is where, because if you are not grounded, the internet will hand you an identity every morning and then voice your nervous system by night. And this brings us back to the karma criminals, the people who cheer for negativity when it comes from someone they support, but raise Atlantis when negativity comes their way. The people who say amen to cruelty when it benefits their tribe, the people who want accountability for everyone else and amnesia for themselves. Some of them are doing it out of fear. They do not want to go against the group. They do not want tribal repercussions. They do not want to be the next target. So they clap along. They laugh along. They attack along. They pretend the emperor has clothes because everyone else is complimenting the outfit. Others are doing it because they were trained that way. They grew up around people who never apologized, people who shifted blame, people who punished questions, people who treated disagreement like disrespect, people who use silence, rage, guilt, religion, money, or abandonment as control. And when a child grows up in that kind of environment, they may learn that love means loyalty without honesty. They may learn that power means never admitting fault. They may learn that being wrong is unsafe. They may learn that whoever has the loudest emotion gets to control a room. Then they become adults who cannot say I was wrong. They cannot say I hurt you. They cannot say I overreacted. They cannot say I do not know enough about this to have such a strong opinion. They cannot say maybe I am being unfair. So instead, they move the goalposts. They change the subject. They moralize. They attack your tone. They bring up something unrelated. They perform victimhood. They gather a tribe. They use the group as a shield against self-awareness. And now you're trying to reason with someone who is not looking for understanding. That is not fun at all. You do better throwing axes like in the air and dodging them than doing that. They are looking for escape. This is why awareness matters. A truly aware person moves differently, not perfectly, not flawlessly, not like some floating monk with perfect lighting and a bamboo flute playing in the background. Aware people are still human. They get angry, tired, triggered. They make mistakes. They have flaws. Their moral codes vary. Their backgrounds vary. Their personalities vary. But awareness creates a certain method. Aware people tend to pause. They tend to observe themselves. They notice patterns. They tend to repair when they waste someone's time. They tend to acknowledge when they brought unnecessary tension into a space. They tend to ask, what part of this belongs to me? They do not need to win every exchange. They do not need to dominate every room. They do not need to turn every disagreement into a funeral procession for your character. Awareness does not make you soft. It makes you accurate. And accuracy is dangerous to people who live through distortion, because once you become accurate, you stop fighting every battle presented to you. You stop defending yourself in rooms where the verdict was written before you walked in. You stop chasing repayment from people who always have money for pleasure, but never money for responsibility. You stop explaining boundaries to people who understand them perfectly when they're the ones setting them. You stop trying to win with people who benefit from your confusion. That is not bitterness. That is maturity. That is you realizing that peace is not found by winning every argument. Sometimes peace is found by refusing to enter the arena, because not every critic deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding deserves a press conference. Not every accusation deserves your energy. Not every family pattern deserves another generation. Not every friendship deserves access. Not every person who misses your usefulness deserves your return. They definitely will try to lay it on thick too. And not every person calling something karma is wise enough to understand the consequence. So what do we do with all of this? How do we live in a world where people preach compassion selectively, morality moves by tribe, and the internet turns suffering into entertainment? First, we check ourselves. Before we celebrate someone else's downfall, we ask, am I seeking justice or am I enjoying harm? Do I want accountability or do I want humiliation? Would I feel the same way if this was someone I loved? Am I reacting to this moment or am I projecting an old wound? That kind of honesty is not comfortable, but it is clean. Secondly, we stop using morality as a costume. A real moral code should cost you something sometimes. It should challenge your own tribe. It should make you fair to people you dislike. It should make you honest when honesty is inconvenient. It should make you consistent when consistency does not benefit your ego. If your morality only appears when it helps you win, it is not morality, it is strategy. Third, we stop overgiving as a way to earn love. You can be generous without being available for consumption. You can be kind without being financially accessible. You can be supportive without becoming someone's emotional storage unit. You can love people without letting them build a house inside your nervous system. You can help without disappearing. And fourth, we come home to ourselves. Self-worth is not arrogance. Self-worth is the inner decision that your life is not a disposable resource. Self-acceptance is not pretending you're perfect. It is being honest about who you are without handing everyone else a weapon to define you. Self-discovery is not selfish. It is the process of finding out what parts of you were chosen, what parts were assigned, what parts were survival, and what parts are finally ready to live. And that is where the real shift happens, because once you know yourself, people lose the ability to sell you a fake version of you. Once you accept yourself, people lose the ability to control you with shame. Once you value yourself, people lose the ability to rent your energy for free. That is freedom, not the loud kind, not the social media kind, not the kind that needs an audience. The silent kind, the kind where you stop needing people who are committed to misunderstanding you to finally clap. The kind where you stop trying to be chosen by people who only value you when you are useful. The kind where you stop confusing being needed with being loved. The kind where you stop calling self-abandonment loyalty. The kind where you can look at the past without moving back into the past. Because remember, this is a replay, not a live stream. You made it through. You are not still there. You are not who you were when you tolerated it. You are not who you were when you overgave. You are not who you were when you begged for reciprocity from people who treated gratitude like a foreign language. Word to hushy tushy. You're not who you were when the internet, the family system, the friend group, the workplace, or the tribe had more authority over your identity than your own soul. You are here now. And here is where you rebuild. So let the karma criminals have their comment sections. Let the selective moralists keep moving their goalposts. Let the tribes keep changing their heroes and villains. Let the internet keep screaming like a weather app with a personality disorder. You do not have to build your life around any of it. You can choose awareness, restraint, boundaries, repair, peace. You can choose to stop cheering for pain, even when pain visits someone you dislike, not because they deserve your affection, not because they deserve access, not because accountability should disappear, but because you deserve to remain human. That is the part people miss. When you celebrate cruelty long enough, you do not just degrade the person you dislike, you degrade yourself. You train your own heart to find joy in destruction. And then one day when life humbles you, because life humbles everyone eventually, you will want mercy from a world you helped make merciless. That is the mirror. That is the paradox. That is the warning. So the next time someone says that is karma, pause. Maybe it is a consequence. Maybe it is a tragedy. Maybe it is complexity. Maybe it is not yours to celebrate. And maybe the highest form of growth is not proving that someone else deserves pain. Maybe it is becoming the kind of person who does not need pain to feel powerful. Because the real karma paradox is this: sometimes the consequence is not what happens to them. Sometimes the consequence is that they no longer have access to you. And sometimes the greatest justice is not revenge, it is recovery, peace, self-respect. It is finally becoming unavailable to the people, patterns, and platforms that taught you to abandon yourself. So protect your work, study yourself, accept yourself, discover yourself. And when the crowd starts cheering for destruction, remember, you do not have to join the noise to prove you have a voice. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back, stay human, keep building a life that no longer needs approval from people who are only comfortable when you were losing yourself. And also be very careful, because baby, the same crowd that's cheering for someone else's downfall, if you do the wrong thing in the future, they're gonna be cheering for yours. It happens all of the time. It happens way too often. Whatever you do with them, they'll do against you. That's all it is. Like Den of Thieves. That was it for this video. And if you like this video, they have buku more where this came from in the playlist and stuff. So thank you for watching. Happy El Nino.